Central California's free speech talk radio program, Keeping It Real with Dr. Gene Kennedy, presents Homelessness in College. This episode was originally aired in full on October 4th, 2011, and all parties involved gave consent for their voices and stories to be used prior to our interview.
What significance does family, a stable home, financial security play in the development process for these 18 to 24-year-olds?
Well, I think it's very deep. I'm always going to go back and identify with myself, even though I'm 46, because at that age, at 18 to 24, it has affected me at age 46.
Wow.
And what that means is I have empathy and I have compassion. And one of the reasons I do is I had a dysfunctional, loving family. Now, I know that's a oxymoron. Dysfunctional, loving family. I had a family that loved me, that was stable in their minds, but didn't have a lot of resources and had a lot of problems structurally. So within that structure, I really didn't know, and a lot of kids don't know where to go. They know their families love them, but what do you do with that love if there's no knowledge and no wisdom? There's no income. If parents don't know how to, we say on the street, how do you hustle?
Yes.
How do you hustle? How do you have 2 or 3 strands of employment? A lot of young families don't do that because babies are having babies. So you have 2 or 3 generations in the household, and you're stuck. And psychologically, again, there's a lot of frustration with these young people, and they end up going on drugs, gang banging, and saying, I got to do what I have to do. College is not for me. And I have a brother. That's what he said. College is not for me. And the system doesn't care about me. And if the system doesn't care about me, why should I try? So psychologically, again, I think family structure plays a big role.
Yeah.
What about those? And now let's talk about the families that are very sound. The young people are very sound, and they have money. Well, what happens to them when they get in school? They don't become homeless. They become some of the people that have no compassion. And they say, I got it, how come you didn't?
Exactly.
And so now you're developing leaders that are heartless.
Absolutely.
So you have all these different composites of students and young people that are looking at each other. And I really believe that's how racism and biasness develop, because there's not an even playing field. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a very deep question that you asked.
Of course. It's all plays a role. You know, we're kind of fighting against each other, even within the same education system. We're all going after the same goal. Absolutely. But you got this thing of keeping others down just with indirect personality cues alone. I'm curious to know what a person goes through psychologically once they lose their home of residence, a student.
And I'm going to come back again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to. I loved your question when we talked about this earlier. I got so excited.
Wonderful.
Because one of the things that young people feel is a feeling of failure, and self-doubt, and despair, and hopelessness. And they ask themselves, I guess I wasn't who my mother and my dad said I was going to be. And so when you lose residence, I always say, and I tell my younger siblings and all my family members, it causes I would say, a little bit of mental illness.
Yes.
Because I've been there. And when you don't know where you're going to go, and people are telling you, here it is. There's college, go enroll. Here's a job, go get it. And you don't know how to go get it because you're homeless. What are you going to do? And especially when you don't have family and they need help too. Now you have to look at your car, but what if you don't have a car to sleep in? So now you have to look at a cardboard box. And I'm going to tell you, many kids that you ask in high school, when they say, I ask them, when you become a young adult, do you believe when you become grown, will you ever be homeless? And they say, not me. It's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And so when it happens, it's devastating.
Again, I don't think that society understands homelessness.
No.
They don't have a proper definition of what homelessness is and who is homeless and what that looks like. There are a lot of stereotypical ideas, but I don't think that they're understanding how close it is around us.
That's right.
So those of you who have just tuned in and wondered where and what you're listening to, you are listening to 88.1, which is our KFCF radio station. It is the free speech radio for Central California. And you're listening to the show that's called Keeping It Real with Dr. Jean Kennedy and with my crew this evening. And we are talking about students and homelessness, trying to get a feel for what does that really mean? What does homelessness look like? What does it feel like? And then, of course, we now have a special guest that's calling us all the way from Los Angeles. And our brother Chatton is doing the interview with him. And we're going to continue that. Welcome again, Brother Thomas Russell.
Yes, Thomas, one of the questions I was about to ask you, as I think it's a very important one, what must a student decide in their own mind to conclude that despite being homeless, they will still continue to pursue an education? Because in my mind, a person would give up on education when they become homeless and go for, immediate relief, financial, try to find a job, 2 jobs, 3, and try to make that their main priority. So what goes on in a person's mind when they say, no, I'm going to stay in school?
Well, first of all, that's a special individual. Know that that's a special individual. Most people are not going to think like that. Most people are going to think food, water, and shelter.
Right. Survival mode.
Education is probably the last on the totem pole. But again, there are certain people I know, including myself, that have gone through that. And it's a self-will thing. You have to have some substance inside you through mentorship. Mentorship is so important because there are people that came before me that were exceptionally strong. And they deposited some things in me, including my mother, including my grandmother, that told me never to give up on your dreams. Now, when you look at dreams, you have to break that down because dreams may be, I want to be successful, and I need to eat, and I need to drive a car. I need to do the necessity thing. So when you say education, most, I would say young people don't equate education with the vital needs of like food, water, and shelter.
Right.
Some of the people that I knew did. I did. And that's because I drew through the neighborhoods and I said, I want to live like that. And you know what? I want to eat like that. And I would see people out on the restaurants and they were having meals and I just wondered how did they do it. And so you have to be inquisitive person, first of all, and you have to be a very strong-willed person. And I'm going to have to say this, you have to get on your knees. Yes. You have to get on your knees. And whatever faith, religion that you are, that's one of the things that our young kids are missing. And those kids that do have that, they seem to be more resilient to doing what they have to do and obtaining their vision, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
And as you're talking, I can't help thinking of the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Absolutely.
We have that. We're working towards that, and it's that self-actualization. But today, what does self-actualization look like?
Absolutely.
I think that's the defining moment at this point. And yes, you're so right about having some type of faith, whatever that is, whoever it is that they would choose to look at. In other words, you have to look out of yourself to be able to move forward in having some sense of hope. So this is where I see faith communities being able to come in and help and support and help with this self-actualization.
Absolutely. And I think finally you have to have a place of solitude within yourself, and physically as well as emotionally. You have to plan, even when you're in high school, and say, I don't plan having hard times, but hard times may come. What is that one place I can take myself and actually accomplish and complete these goals and objectives that I've set out for myself? And that has to do with mentorship. Sometimes you have to teach people how to look at things, and you have to teach people how to critically look at things in order for them to be successful.
What I found online is very interesting. There's actually a lot surrounding this subject. Without proper education or degree, unaccompanied youth find themselves contributing to unemployment rates in America. Unaccompanied youth face access barriers to education, keeping many of them from completing both high school and post-secondary education. Such barriers include school attendance policies, credit accrual, legal guardianship requirements, residency requirements, proper records, and lack of transportation. Those who find jobs often don't make livable wages. Society will eventually feel the additional effects of the uneducated and unemployed youth. And listen to this. Youth who are out of school and out of work are not acquiring the knowledge and skills needed to replace the skilled, educated, experienced adult workers who will be retiring in the coming decade.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I am not college material. Have never been college material. You know, I love documentaries. I love to read. I consume information, but I'm just not, you know, diligent. I'm not disciplined when it comes to homework. You tell me to read this book. If it's not a book I'm interested in, I don't read it.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it is very important that I understand that the subject is homelessness of college students, but perhaps we could also just talk a little or give recognition to the fact that sometimes, especially if you're in the position of not being able to buy your books, not being able to concentrate because you're hungry, it might be better to leave, get a job for a couple of years. I knew I wasn't college material, so I went to secretarial school to learn how to type and got a job. And have always had a job. I mean, if you can type, if you can, you know, any little skill that you have, if you can develop that skill, learn how to paint houses. Look, everything doesn't necessarily take a college degree.
Right.
And once you get on solid footing, you can go back to college. That's one thing I love about community college especially. It's true of state also. But at community college, you can go back at 40 and be surrounded by people who are in your age group, because that's, you know, partly what community college is for.
So no, and you make a good point. And by the way, you cannot get a room at Fresno City College without going through this lady who just spoke. And so again, so oftentimes even when you don't have that so-called college degree, I think what we do is we tell people you don't have that degree and so you're not going to have a decent job.
Right.
But again, learning, you've got formal learning or informal learning. Some folks, they have to be in college because they need the clout, they need a certain way. I noticed people treating me different when I got my doctorate degree and when I didn't have it. And I'm the same person. I wore the same clothes, I ate the same food, I lived in the same place, but there was something about, she has a doctorate degree. Didn't make me any way different, but it opened up a few doors until some folks realized that, well, she's the same that she was when she had her master's degree, you know, but my stuff smells like everybody else, you know. I mean, I walk the same way, but I know also that too much that is given, much is required. And so it has also opened up some doors of opportunities that I can say something and say it with the authority because I've done the research and it's there. So I'm just saying that I think sometimes as parents, we put that pressure on ourselves to say all 6 of my kids going to go to school. They're going to get a degree. And the one who don't, you're the one that's going out. Kick you out. You're not going to be part of my family. I want to just, the black sheep.
Yeah, it just says there are statistics to support that a child will resort to survival sex within 48 hours of becoming homeless. It continues to say that taking drugs becomes a way to stay up all night without having to find a place to sleep. Once a student decides to self-medicate with drugs and make survival sex a way of life, would you imagine it to be more difficult for them to live independently once they have the option to do so?
Absolutely. Let me answer that because I wrote some notes on that, and I've had a situation where I had some students. First of all, let me share that patterns are very addictive. What I mean by patterns are very addictive, a lot of young people experiment, and because they don't know who they are. Yeah. And because they don't know who they are, a lot of parenting styles in the home are not working. They don't have a lot of support. And some do have support and just are rebellious. Let's be honest with that, too. And so they go out here and the peer pressure, and they get into some things that they really didn't know they couldn't handle. And so as they become what you call addicted, you think in their minds, hey, I'll get on my own, I'll do this. They can't. Let me tell you why they can't. It's because when they go on their own, that addictive lifestyle and that pattern, that's also addictive.
Keeping It Real with Dr. Gene Kennedy airs from 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific Time on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. KIR is broadcast locally by KFCF 88.1 FM, or visit kfcf.org for live international streaming.